All right. So our training objectives for this webinar are we are going to first learn how to create a classroom in the PIDS system. Second, we're going to talk a bit about the difference between users in PIDS and pyramid model professionals, or PMPs. And so they're different people in the system that have different functions. We're going to learn the steps to create a pyramid model professional in PIDS. We're going to talk about what components are necessary to include in the pyramid model professional's profile. As we'll see, there are some components that are required, while others are not necessary. I want to make sure that everybody today walks away with an understanding of how the TPOT and TPITOS reliability training is entered into PIDS, which needs to be done by either a state data administrator or an application administrator for your state. Then we're going to take a look at how to assign the pyramid model professional to a classroom, and then make sure that we're understanding how we're connecting all of those dots of connecting the setup components that are necessary for collecting data in the TPOT or TPITOS. I'm going to start off by just walking through a few visuals here in this presentation before we jump into PIDS. So what we're talking about today is really connecting these setup pieces, or connecting the dots in the system from an administrator perspective, so that when we do the TPOT or TPITOS tools in PIDS, we have the information that we need to complete the tool. So the three main dots that we're going to be connecting are, first, the classroom, which we have to know where the TPOT or TPITOS is occurring. We also need to connect who is participating in that TPOT or TPITOS observation. So is it the teacher or the participant? And then the third person, or the third dot that we're connecting here, is the person doing the TPOT. So that is our reliable observer. So again, just kind of going over this, we're looking at where the TPOT is taking place. This is a requirement on the TPOT tool or TPITOS tool in PIDS. We're also looking at who was observed. This is a required field in the tool as well. So we have to indicate who is participating in the TPOT or TPITOS. And then finally, who was conducting the TPOT or TPITOS. And this person has additional setup pieces. Since we want to make sure that the person who's doing the observation is a reliable observer, that person must have their training date, their TPOT or TPITOS reliability training date, entered into the PIDS system, into their account by a system admin or your state data admin. So that is an additional step. We call those protected trainings in PIDS. So the TPOT reliability training, TPITOS reliability training, and also the practice-based coaching are what we considered those protected training in PIDS. So just want to talk a little bit about the difference between users and pyramid model professionals, because this can be a little bit tricky to understand when you're first getting familiar with PIDS. So users are people who are in the system who have accounts in PIDS. So they have a login username, they have created their password, they have an account to access the system, enter data or interact with data, run reports, so they can actually get into the system and interact with the information that is in there. Then we also have what we're going to be focusing on primarily today, which are these pyramid model professionals in the system. So these are people who have been entered into the PIDS system, but are primarily functioning as a list of names for data collection purposes. So just by entering somebody into the system as a pyramid model professional, we're not giving them access to log into the system or interact with data in any way in the system. We are simply putting them in as a list of names because they are a teacher and they're interacting with pyramid model work in your program, or they are somebody that's doing those observations or the coaching. So they need to be a name on a form, essentially, is why we're putting them in here. So sometimes these two roles can overlap. In a lot of states that we're working with, sometimes those leadership coaches are wearing both of these hats and have both of these roles. So a leadership coach or a process coach or an external coach will definitely have a PIDS account. So they would be somebody that would have a login access and able to enter data or interact with data. But they also might have to enter themselves as a pyramid model professional because perhaps they are the person who's conducting the TPOT or TPITOS. So they might be that reliable observer who's supporting the program with those pieces at this time. And so they might need to be logged into the system and then also enter themselves in as a pyramid model professional in the system, so that when they go to do a TPOT or TPITOS, they can select their name from the list of potential observers. Okay. So the data that's required for each of these pieces, I want to take a look at next. So in order to collect or to create a classroom in the system, we're going to need to have a name for that classroom, an ID number, a location, which is typically the city that the program is located in. Is it an infant toddler classroom? This is a simple yes, no field, which we'll take a look at here shortly. Is it a preschool classroom? And is it currently being served by a substitute? Next, when we're creating the teacher or the participant, so now we're looking at the pyramid model professionals account in PIDS or profile in PIDS. These are the data points that are needed in the system. So we're going to enter a first name, last name, ID number, the day that they started working with the program, their email address, gender, race, ethnicity. Those are all fields within that profile, but you may select prefer not to report. We're going to have to assign them to a classroom, and then we're also going to make sure they have the correct job function in that classroom. Then last, we're going to enter in our observer. So again, this is that pyramid model professional. So all of the same data points, name, ID number, email address, the demographics, class assignment, job function. The additional piece for this person, though, as they are our TPOT or TPITOS reliable observer, is that entering of that training date that's done by your administrator. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pause there for a second and see if there are any questions. Okay. Check the chat real quick. All right, a couple questions in the chat, looks like. Oh, okay, looks like there's a problem with audio for Janet. Did that get resolved?
Yes, I'm in now.
Oh, okay, great, wonderful. Hopefully we didn't miss too much, but this is being recorded. So if there's anything you missed, we can catch you up at the end of this and go through any questions you might have, and then also share that recording with you.
Okay, thank you.
Use that. All right, so now we're going to log into PIDS and take a look at all of these steps and as they play out in the actual system. So the first thing that we are going to do, and I'm in a test account with all made up information, is we are going to create that classroom. I am logged in as a data collector, but you could also be logged in as a classroom coach data collector. So either of those two roles would give you access to do these steps that we're going to be looking at today. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate over to the classroom dashboard and click there. That will open up the classroom dashboard for me to interact with. There's just a little review of this dashboard and any of the dashboards. Once you click on them, if you're in as a role that can add information to the system, you'll always see this new add new button. That's how you go ahead and enter one from scratch.
Would you mind sharing your screen?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
There we go. Can you see my screen now? Great.
Perfect. Yes.
Thanks, Nairobi. Appreciate it. All right. So all I have done so far is just click on the classroom dashboard. And anytime you click on a dashboard in the system, you're going to be presented with a list of information of classrooms or children or whatever data collection tool you're currently in as, of ones that have been already entered into the system. So this list here represents all of the classrooms that have currently been entered into the PIDS system for this program. We also have a pie graph over here that just shows us how many of our classrooms are currently being supported by a substitute teacher versus a regular full-time teacher. So to create a new classroom, we're going to click on the Add New Classrooms button. So we have 6 fields that we must complete in order to create a classroom. So the first one is the name. So if your program doesn't have classroom names already designated, you can make up any kind of naming convention. So the program that I'm in is called Alice in Wonderland. So perhaps the classroom name would be AW1 or Alice 1. So just anything that you would like to name it. Then you are going to assign this classroom an ID number. Now, this is a required field, and it is not one of the ID numbers like there is in other situations in the system where the system will auto-generate one for you. The Classrooms does not do that. So you would have to assign this classroom a ID number for your program. So we're going to call this T01. Location, so this is just the town or the city that the program is located in. And then a couple of yes/no questions here regarding the age group of this particular classroom. So is this an infant toddler classroom? Is this a preschool classroom? And then finally, that question about who is supporting this classroom. Do we have a full-time regular teacher assigned, or is this classroom currently being served by a substitute? So that is it for the 6 fields that are needed, or the 6 data points that we need to create a classroom in PIDS. So once I've completed all 6, I'll go ahead and click the green Save button and enter that into the dashboard. I can see now that my Tulips class has been added to our program. All right. So it's important that you do the classrooms first when you're doing this setup, because as you'll see next when we get into the Pyramid Model Professionals account, one of the steps that we'll be doing in the Pyramid Model Professionals account is linking them to a classroom. So if you don't do your classrooms first, then you're going to be creating the Pyramid Model Professionals, and then you have to go back and create the classroom, go back into the professionals and link them to that classroom. So that saves you some back and forth steps by creating those classrooms first. So next, we're going to come into the Pyramid Model Professionals dashboard. So I'll go ahead and click there. And I can see again the list of professionals that I have already entered into the system. So from here, I can also come in and click the Actions button. I can edit these profiles at any time. I can view the details in a static PDF version to print off. As a data collector for this program, I also have access to delete these profiles. Also within the Pyramid Model Professionals dashboard is this option to upload a roster of names. So if I click on the Upload Rosters button, this can be used if you have a lot of Pyramid Model Professionals or employees that you're uploading into your system. Rather than entering them one at a time, PIDS offers a place for you to create a CSV file, develop that roster, and then simply import it into the system. So when you click on that button, you are provided with a template. So you can click Download Template, and that will provide you with the CSV file with all of the particular column headers that are needed in order to complete this import. You're also provided with an example that you can download, your instructions, and then here is where you would go ahead and import your file. So once you have your CSV file saved locally to your computer, you can go ahead and select it and import that list of names. I'll go back now to our Pyramid Model Professional dashboard. So today we're going to walk through the steps of adding a new professional one at a time. So I'm going to click on the Add New Professional button, and that will open up our blank form. So I want to take a minute here to note that right now I'm just presented with the basic information section, but once I complete this section and hit the Save button, I am going to have 3 more sections that open up in this profile that I'll have to scroll down in order to see. So we'll see how that functions, but it's important just to note that this is just the basic information, but there are additional steps that are needed to complete that profile. So we're going to go ahead and enter this person into our system. First name, last name. Now this ID number, I do have the option of entering in an ID number. So if our program already has assigned numbers for the employees that you would like to use in the PIDS system, you can simply enter that number, series of numbers and letters into this field. If you do decide that you want to just leave it blank, the system will auto-generate a random number for you. It is important, though, that this ID number not identify who this person is in any way. So, for example, we wouldn't want to create an ID number for this person that was Jones 123. The reason for that is in PIDS, as we are looking at running reports at a state level or even a hub level, names are hidden in the system. And so instead of displaying an employee's name, what would be displayed is their ID number. So we want to make sure that that ID number does not identify them. So for this example, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it blank. You can see here as I hover over this little help button, anytime you see these in the system, this will give you a little bit of an explanation as to how this field works. All right, so then we come down to our demographic questions, which are required fields in the system. So if I were to try to save this now, I can see here that these are required for me to move on and save this form. However, if we don't have this information or the person does not wish to enter that information into the system, we can select prefer not to report for all of these values. I'll go ahead and complete these. Next, we have email. So this is required. So each person that you're entering as a PMP in the PIDS system must have their own unique email address. It can't be like a program-wide email. Go ahead and enter that there. Okay. Next is a question that was entered into the system because as we looked at that Venn diagram in the beginning, where we sometimes have people who are entering themselves into here for the purposes of data collection, but they're not an employee of the program. So we wanted to make sure that the system could differentiate those two roles and people in the system. So we have a question here to indicate, is this person an employee of the program? So if I was a program director and I was entering teachers, yes, this person is an employee. If I was perhaps a leadership coach and entering myself in here because I conducted a TPOT, then the answer would be no. Hire date. So this is a bit tricky if, again, we are that person who is the leadership coach perhaps and is not an employee of the program. So in this field, if that is the case and you're entering yourself in here, you're going to indicate the date that you started working with the program in this field. And then if and when this person leaves our program, we do have the option to indicate a separation date. So when they leave, and then also indicate a separation reason. So we have separated, left the program. You can also choose the other option and then specify that and type that field in here. All right, so we have all of our required fields. We have our ID number left blank. So now I'm going to go ahead and click save. Okay. We now see that the system has auto-assigned this person a random number. So that filled in for us. And now we have entered this person into our program as a pyramid model professional. So I'm going to stay on this form. The system will keep me right here. But now if I scroll down a little bit further, I have 3 new sections that I can fill out. The first one is trainings. Each of these sections has their own add new button, and each of these sections will also have their own save button. We also have job functions. We have classroom assignments. So let's go ahead and start with the add new training. So we're going to click on the add new training button. And again, just below here is where the fields open up for me to enter in that information. So this is where we can enter information that this person may have taken, particular trainings in the system. So if I click this drop down, you can see the options that we have here. So we have the pyramid model preschool modules, challenging behavior, infant toddler modules, PWE, positive solutions. This is a list we are talking about expanding to include some other trainings that are routinely offered as pyramid model trainings as well. But one thing to note in here is that we don't see the TPOT training, we don't see the TPITOS training, and we don't see the practice-based coaching training. That is because I am logged in as a data collector, and so I do not have access to enter those training dates for any employee. Those, again, would be done by our system admin or your state level admin. So I do have access to enter other trainings, so we can go ahead and add one of those. So I'll just select positive solutions, the date, and click save. We can go ahead and repeat that process to add more. And save. You enter each one at a time, saving as you go in this field. From here, every time I enter a data value, you can see that I still do have this actions button. So if I made a mistake, oh, they didn't actually take that training on 4/3 of 23, it was actually 4/3 of 22. I can go in here and I can correct that and save it. All right. So the next section is our job function section. So we're going to, again, click our add new job function button. And this relates to what this person's role is, what is their job function, what are they doing within this program. We'll see some of the options that we have in this field here. So again, clicking on the add new, I am presented with the fields. So if I just scroll down a little bit below, I'll be able to see that. So our job type, and here is our list. Okay, so lots of different job types and functions that a person might have when working with a program or working in a program. Okay. So we're going to say this person is our teacher. So we're going to select teacher. And the start date that this person became a teacher will be the same start date that they have here, the same hire date. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste and put that in there. And I'll save that. Okay. But then maybe later on, this person started as a teacher, but then they were promoted or had other duties assigned. So we can go ahead and add another job function. So maybe perhaps they are also now our classroom coach. So we can go ahead and select classroom coach, indicate the start date that they started doing that role, and save that as well. So just like with the trainings, you can enter as many as appropriate. Once you enter them, if you made a mistake, you can use your actions button to edit it and fix it. You can also delete entries if they were incorrect. So now we've entered this person as our teacher. I'm also going to enter them as our pyramid model TPOT reliable observer in this scenario. So we're going to go ahead and give them that job function as well. And we'll see that they started that one couple of months ago and click save. All right, so we have all of these job functions. We have our trainings entered except for that TPOT reliable of training. And now we can come down and assign or link them to a classroom. So we're going to click on that add new assignment button again. And we will be presented with these 5 fields. So we have our assigned date. So when did they start working in that classroom? Which classroom did they start working in? Okay, so we can see the classroom that we just created, the Tulips class, is in our list. And each of these that's presented in this list are classrooms that we had already created. So we'll go ahead and select the Tulips class. And we will designate what job this person has in this class. We'll say that they are the teacher for this class. If they leave this classroom assignment, so they're being switched from this classroom to another classroom, you would want to come in and indicate that date that they are no longer working in that classroom and the reason that they are no longer in that classroom. So for now, we'll just go ahead and click save and assign them to that classroom. Okay. I can give them more than one job within the program and within a classroom. So if I click add new assignment, okay, I can give them another assignment for that same classroom. Okay, so we can go ahead and select again the same tulips class as the TPOT Reliable Observer and save. Any questions here? I'll go ahead and pause for a minute before I exit off of the pyramid model professional profile. All right.
Hey, Summer, I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
So someone can be identified as a TPOT or TPITOS reliable observer as part of their role here, but the training can't be added?
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So
Okay.
we can do all of the setup pieces as a data collector, as the role that we're in today, or a classroom coach data collector role also has this access. We can indicate all the other trainings. We can designate what their job function is, what are their normal duties at the program. We can link them up to a classroom, but that last piece of actually entering in their reliability date is something that was designed to be completed by a system admin to make sure that they truly do have their reliability training, because without that piece, they can't complete a TPOT in here, or they can't select themselves as an observer or be selected as an observer in a TPOT or TPITOS.
Sorry, can you explain that last part to me?
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
because
So
this
just-
person has not been identified as, has someone sort of prior to this entered the TPOT or TPITOS
No.
reliable?
Yeah, nope. So this is just kind of set up that either a leadership coach could do, or maybe an admin at the program can come in and do all of this setup. And then they would need to request that that actual training date, that's kind of like the last piece of the puzzle, be added to this person's profile. But that system admin has no one to connect that training date to, which we're going to take a look at what that looks like from the admin's perspective in a second here. They would not be able to enter a training date if this person wasn't created in the system as a pyramid model professional. So this step needs to be done. Then typically they would request, hey, I've entered in this person. Can you please add their reliability date of this date? There might be a confirmation process depending on your state and what process you develop. And then that reliability date is in there, and then they're set and locked in as somebody that can enter TPOTs or select themselves as an observer or be selected as an observer. Nairobi, I think you had your hand raised. Is there another question about that?
Yes, sorry. So, and you might have already answered this. Sorry, I had to go to the restroom really quick. So a system admin, can they add in a pyramid model professional? Can they like add a new person in, and then you can just add like all of the trainings and whether they're a reliable observer or not?
Yes,
Okay.
they can. Mm-hmm.
And then for when you add in the classrooms, can you select yes for both infant and toddler and preschool?
Yes, you can.
Okay, and you can like edit those if they change later.
Correct.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's all I had written down.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great questions. Any other questions? All right. So what I'm going to do, and hopefully Rachel, this kind of clears things up if it's a little bit foggy still, as to how this TPOT and TPITOS reliability piece works in here, because it is a little tricky. I am going to switch over to that admin view. So I'm going to click on my username up here, and everybody has access to do this. So if you click on your username in PIDS, one, it'll show you what program you're logged in as. So if you're doing a bunch of data entry and you forgot what program you're logged in as, it will show you, and it will also show you the role that you're currently using in the system. Most users have multiple programs, and some have multiple roles. So we're going to get to see what that looks like here. As I click select role, this will allow me to switch to a different program, to switch to a different user role. So I'm going to be presented this screen which depending on how you're set up in the system and what access you have, you may see this screen. If you have 2 or more programs, you're definitely going to see this screen because the system will want to know what program you want to log in to enter data or interact with data for. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my admin role. So I'm going to search. I have a ton in here, so bear with me here. There we go. Go. Application admin, that's the one I want. All right, so I'm going to select that one. And now what we're going to do is we're going to see what it looks like from the admin's perspective on how to enter that information. So a couple ways the admin can go about it. One is I can go directly into the Pyramid Model Professional dashboard, and I can go and find that person. I can click the Actions Edit button and I can go in there. So let's say I was going in to add something for James Bond's record. I can click Actions, I can edit. Okay. And so this exact same page that we were looking at and working in this employee or Pyramid Model Professionals profile opens up. So we have our basic information. I can edit any of that. We have trainings, job functions, and our classroom assignment history. So this time though, when I come into the training sections, if I click the Add New button, my list has been expanded because I'm in that admin role. So right from here, I can go ahead and assign them a new training of practice-based coaching, TPOT, or TPITOS Reliable Observer. So they already have the TPOT Reliable Observer and the PBC. So we'll just go ahead and add the TPITOS Reliable Observer in this example and save that. So that's the last piece here. So as the admin, I can come in, I can see the exact same page, all the same fields, but I just have those 3 additional options in that menu. Also within the admin's profile, if I scroll up to the top here, I have the admin menu is located at the very top. So this is unique to application admins or state data admins where you have this menu of options. This is another way that admins can add those trainings to a larger list of employees. So let's say somebody gave you, 10 people, here's all their TPOT, TPITOS, PBC dates, and you have to go in and enter all of them. You want to come to this bulk training edition section, where then it's going to give you a list of all of the pyramid model professionals in the system. And so then I can very easily come down the list and add those dates to each person as I need to. So we can go ahead and look for the person we just created, Lily. We can pull up theirs and see that she does not have any trainings yet. So we can go ahead and add those. So we can add her PBC date, her TPOT date, and her TPITOS date. Each time you enter these dates for a single person, you will have to click the Save button. So if you're going through a long list, let's say you're just working down this list, if I enter something for James Bond, I'll have to save it. Come to Ford Taurus, I have to save it, and so on and so forth. So it's a quicker way, but just know that you do have this save button for each person. So you need to save that and then move on to the next person. So now our admin has done this last piece. Now our new person that we have just added is in the system, and we can select them as an observer in a TPOT because we've added those trainings in here. I'm going to go ahead and switch back by clicking the my username again and clicking the select role. And I'm going to go back in as a data collector. Okay. Now if we just go back, let's just circle back to our person that we just created, again, by clicking on the Pyramid Model Professionals dashboard button. I see our person here. Now I can see that TPOT Reliable Observer, or actually, I'm sorry, that's the job function. I have to come in here and click Actions and Edit. in order to see that that training has now been entered. So I click edit and come down here. I can see that those trainings have been entered. Notice here too that the TPITOS and the TPOT trainings, as we recently just announced that they are a 3-year certification or reliability, that the system will automatically put in the expiration date of 3 years from the date that we entered it in here. So that's a new feature that's been added. All right. So when I click on the edit button there for the TPITOS Reliable Observer, because I'm back in as a data collector, I don't have access to edit that. So even though it's now in here, I still don't have access to modify that. So that's done at a higher level. So we have now created our classroom. We have created our pyramid model professional, and we kind of created a somewhat unrealistic scenario here where this is both our teacher and our TPOT reliable observer. But in reality, these might be 2 different people, and you would be repeating this process exactly the same for each of those people that you're entering into the system. So now let's go into the TPOT tool and see where all of these pieces connect in the actual data collection tool. So I'm going to come down to the TPOT observations dashboard and click TPOT observations. Within this dashboard, we are presented with the list of TPOTs that have previously been entered into this program. Each of those, I do have my actions button, which will allow me to view those details as a static PDF. I can edit them. I can also delete these. So as a data collector, I do have access to do all of those different functions. Also want to just point out, as this is a new feature that was recently added to PIDS, is that professionals can come in and enter their TPOT schedule. So if they have TPOTs that are scheduled out, perhaps at the end of the school year, or you have it planned out throughout the year as to when they're going to happen, they can go ahead and be scheduled for each classroom. Okay. So to do that, you would just click add new classroom or add new schedule, excuse me. And then it pops open below. So we have our program already defaulted in. So we had 2023 in there, so maybe we can enter 2024 for our new class. And then we just check the boxes of the months that we have planned to do those TPOTs. And I can save that. So let's go into our TPOT tool now and see how all these pieces fit together. So I'm going to click add new TPOT observation. So this is going to bring open our blank TPOT form. And the TPITOS does function the exact same way. So clicking on the TPITOS dashboard, you'll have the option to schedule. You can add, edit, delete all of the TPITOS that were in there previously. So just like the Pyramid Model Professionals profile, when we first click on the new TPOT observation, we are presented with just the basic information first. So I don't have anything else in here. You can see down here in this blue bar that you have to save the basic information before you can move on to do the participants, the key practices, the red flags. So all of the other data points in this tool, I'll need to save this piece first, enter it into the database, and then I can move on and do the scoring. We'll say that we did a TPOT observation as of today. We enter our start time. We enter our end time. So here is where our classrooms come into play. So if I did not have any classrooms created in my program yet, and we didn't do that setup piece, when I come in to do a TPOT, this list is going to be blank, and I won't be able to move forward and enter any TPOT data. But I can see the classrooms that I have created, and I can select our new class, the Tulips class. Same for our observer here. So we have our little help button. So in order for this person to appear in this list, all the things we talked about, they have to be entered into the system with that reliability training. So if I click the down arrow, I can see all of the different people in our program that have the TPOT reliable training entered into their profile in the system. Again, if we didn't create any of these profiles, if we didn't ask our admin to add that date, none of these people would be showing up in this list, even if we gave them that job function in the beginning. So even if we gave them the job function of TPOT Reliable Observer, we entered or has linked them up to this particular classroom, without that training date entered by the admin, they still won't show up in this list. Then we just have our data points, number of adults present at the beginning, present at the end, number who entered. All of these fields are required in the TPOT in PIDS. So if there's a 0 in here, you just have to enter the 0. Number of children present at the beginning, number of children present at the end. And this is an optional notes field. So now we have our basic information entered. So we're going to go ahead and click save. So again, just like the pyramid model professional, it's going to keep us on this same page. But if I now scroll down, I can now see we have all of the rest of the TPOT tool pieces in here. So we have TPOT participants, our key practices, our red flags, types of red flags observed, your effective strategies, responding to challenging behavior, and then our save button for the whole thing is down at the bottom of the tool. We're not going to complete an entire TPOT in this training today because training isn't necessarily about how to complete a TPOT, but more all of these setup pieces that are required in order for people to be able to do the TPOTs and TPITOS. But I do want to point out the TPOT participants section. So this section has its own add new button. So we're going to click add new TPOT participant. And what we're doing here is we are indicating who was observed in this TPOT. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and select my TPOT participant. And then I'm going to select what specific role did they have in this TPOT. So perhaps this person was our lead teacher. So I would enter them here and click save. Again, we can add more than one if we need to. So if there were a couple of people that participated, we can go ahead and add multiple. So in order for these people to show up here, they have to be entered as a pyramid model professional, and they have to have that teacher or teaching assistant job function connected to this particular classroom. So again, connecting all of those dots on the back end to make sure that the data that we're entering into this TPOT is accurate and that we actually have somebody that's reliable entered into here, and our participants are selected here. The purpose of this, that the participants need to be entered in as a pyramid model professional with these roles, is for reporting purposes. All of these components are reportable in PIDS. So if you wanted to run reports based off of a particular teacher, you can do that because of the way it's entered into the database. You can do it off of the observer's role, based off of who's doing the TPOTs, based off of the classroom. So anytime you see these drop-down options in PIDS, it's kind of an indication that that is a data point you can use in reporting, in filtering down and further analyzing your TPOT TPITOS data. All right. So from there, we can go ahead and save our TPOT. It is going to tell me I have to enter all these because it is required. I'll just go ahead and plug those numbers in here. Yes, and so we can move on. So now we have our TPOT started for our tulips class that we just created with our new TPOT Reliable Observer, with the teacher that we selected that was already entered in as a pyramid model professional, and it has been entered into our database. We can then come back in at any time and edit that to complete the rest of the TPOT. So if I click on Actions, Edit, I'm able to get back into that exact TPOT and put in my scoring or make any corrections that might be needed. Okay. So as far as connecting the pieces and getting all of that set up in, that is all that is required in order for people to be able to collect TPOT, TPITOS, and also practice-based coaching via the classroom coaching log. They must be entered in as a pyramid model professional. They must be connected to the classroom with the correct job role. And then if they are one of those reliable observers or doing PBC, they must have those trainings entered by an admin. So I'm going to go ahead and pause there. We have just under 15 minutes left. Want to make sure we have opportunity for anybody to ask questions, to go back over anything, to even explore other areas of the system. Since we have some time, happy to field any of those questions at this time.
Hi, Summer. Just a quick question. So if we're entering TPOT or anything, I guess, for that matter, and we're missing a step, is it best to cancel that whole thing out, go back and add in that classroom or professional and tie them to that? Or is there some kind of save? Well, like, does the system save any of that?
Yeah, great question. So it depends on what data points you're missing. So if I go back into a new TPOT, and I don't have an observer, you can see here that it's grayed out. I can't move forward. I can't do anything with this because this will be required. So if I try to just save this, you can see all of these pieces are required. So sometimes when I'm doing training, I tell people, because the system doesn't have like a red asterisk for you to see right out the gates what's required. Sometimes I'll just click save, so everything gets lit up so you can see what's required. So you'd have to have those initial pieces in order to move on and save this basic information part. I think it's always best to just know those pieces ahead of time, know the names that you have to collect, the email addresses, do they want their demographic information collected in here? So those processes can be set up at a program level so that you can get the information and then just plug it all in one time.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question. In the system, can you see TPOT, TPITOS scores by teacher?
Yes, let's go into the reports and explore that a little bit. Trying to think if I have much data in here. I'm going to actually switch roles real quick and go into a different account that I know has more data so we can play around with some of those reports. So the way you would go about that, a couple different ways you can do that. So if I click on the reports tab up here, the reports button at the top of my screen, it launches the reports menu. So from here, because we're interested in a TPOT report, I can use this keyword search and it will filter the list of reports available to me and just show me the ones that pertain to TPOT. So if we wanted to do it by a particular teacher, we would select, I'll just use the TPOT trend report as an example. So I'll go ahead and select that report. My criteria opens up on the left-hand side. And so that's where we're going to tell the system what date range we want to look at. We can run it by one particular classroom. So in the question that you're interested in, can we just run it by one particular person? So as this data collector role, I can see names in the system. I can come in here and select one particular person. So let's see if I can get lucky and grab a particular professional and then run this report. And so then what we're telling the system is we want to see all of the TPOT data for this particular person for this date range. Okay.
And the user roles who can run that report are data collectors and state admin or application admin.
Yeah, great question. So pretty much all of the roles can run these TPOT reports, but what's different is what they can see. So if
Okay.
I were to run this as a classroom coach, no, not a classroom coach, they would have the same access as the data collector. But say as a leadership coach,
Mhm.
somebody that's running reports from there, I would not see people's names. So
Okay.
when I see this criteria list, it's just going to have 514 for Tom Hanks. It's not going to have their name presented. And same with like a community level access point or a state level access point.
Okay.
Those names are going to be hidden. And then even classroom names are hidden as well. So same information, just more aggregate, de-identified.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. So does that answer your original question about how you can run the data?
Yeah. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Summer, I have a question too. In Connecticut, we're just getting into the PIDS, but at our data team meeting yesterday, the question came up when the funding runs out, if we can't continue this in Connecticut, if they decide not to, is there a way to, I don't know, mass export or continue and save scores, right? I assume there is, a way to do that.
Yes, there is a way to do that, depending on how much data you have in here and how complicated of a SQL export that would be for our programmers. There may be a little bit of cost associated with that. But yes, you can get your data to answer that question. But also I know from PMC's standpoint that we want to support states, that if you're continuing to use this, we really want to, develop a partnership where we can continue and keep this working for you. So that too.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think it will happen, but we've been surprised before. So as
Yeah,
we're looking in and entering and this is awesome. We just want to make sure that we can continue the work should that
Sure.
happen. So
sure. Great question. And if I return back to the report list too, everything in the system, whether it's employee lists or lists of programs or BOQs or any of the data collection tools, they all have a data export report, which is just a raw, take all of the data elements in that tool or in that form and export it out to Excel. So at any point in time, you can do that from your system as well. All right. Great. Well, any other questions then before we wrap this up?
so if nobody else has a question, and this may be a selfish one, but
Yeah, go
can
for it.
you, in Connecticut, we've got mentor coaches that are supporting program or leadership coaches, and then internal coaches, right? And so who should use that coaching, which coaching log? I know
Yeah,
the internal coach, right, uses that coaching log with the programs, but when would a mentor and or program coach add in their sort of things for good data?
yeah. So the coaching logs that we have in here, so the first one is the classroom coaching log. So I'll just pop that one open so you can take a peek at that. So that's collecting the practice-based coaching work that's happening at the program. I clicked too fast now. It doesn't want to operate with me. There we go. So this is where we're tracking that coaching cycle. And so we're collecting date and duration and who's being coached and who's doing the coaching. And then of what all of these things occurred in that coaching cycle, the observations, the meetings, the follow-up, and then a narrative note. So this is more that internal coach, PBC coach doing that. Then if I come up to my username again, and I'm going to select a leadership coach role. So this is a different role. Let's go back to our program we were using before. The leadership coach role has a lot of the same access as a data collector in that they can see this information, a lot of it. It will be de-identified, but they cannot add and edit information in here. But what they do have is this leadership coach dashboard. So they have an additional dashboard that the program level data collector or classroom coach data collector would not have the access to this. So this is really a place for that external coach, leadership coach to do their work. So this is where the leadership coach log lives, their team meeting schedules, their team meeting debriefs, coaching circle, community of practice. So that some of those things that should just be accessible by that leadership coach. Well, I'm going to go ahead and just click edit here so you can see one that has already been completed. So this is the leadership coach log in PIDS, and it's a really excellent data collection tool that was just recently launched. And this is intended to be either a single encounter log or a cumulative log over the course of 1 month. So this one here is a cumulative log of all of the different things and meetings and trainings and interactions I had with this program over the course of a month if I were a coach. So you can see number of communications, number of attempted engagements, what phase. So this is a tricky one. Not all states have phases of implementation. So if your state has adopted an official phases of implementation document, it gives you the option to select what phase of pyramid model implementation they're in or not applicable. Some questions about just kind of what is the likelihood, your leadership team members, and then it has 6 domains where you're just checking the box throughout the month. Did you assist in developing materials? Did you provide some suggestions in the data system? So as things happen throughout the month, you can save as you go with this tool and track all of the work that's being done, training, strengths, weaknesses or barriers, and then your impressions. So that this would be the log that process coach, leadership coach, external coach would use.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
So I think for Maryland, our leadership coach and our classroom coach are going to be the same person.
Yep.
And so I'm wondering how would that work if like we're assigning them a user? Like would they just be assigned 2 different types of users that they have to switch between?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yep. And we have that in a lot of different states actually, where they wear both of those hats for the time being.
Mhm.
And so, yes, you would give them both the leadership coach role so that they would have access to do this type of data collection and do their logs. And then
Mhm.
you would also give them the classroom coach data collector role so that they could enter BOQs and TPOTs and TPITOS and classroom coaching logs and do all those data collection pieces. They can also help the program with creating those pyramid model professionals, creating the classroom. So all of those pieces that we did, that classroom coach data collector role can do it. The only difference between the classroom coach data collector role and the data collector role is they can't see child names. So that's why I usually give those to a coach who's doing both of those things. So they can do their coach work, they can support the program with data collection, but they don't have access to see child names if the program is using the system for that.
So sorry, just to clarify. So
Sure.
if we assign our coaches as data collectors, they have access to like they can do the leadership coaching log stuff and they can do classroom logs.
No, so the leadership coach role, if I come in here to classrooms, let's say, I can see what classrooms are in here. I have no ability to enter one.
Okay.
Same with the PMPs. I have no ability to enter one. I can't see child names. So this is a really external role where, let me go into a classroom coach data collector role real quick here. This role is a program level role in that I can create those classrooms. Okay, so if I click classrooms, I do have the add new button. Okay, but I don't have access to see children's names with this one. So sometimes there's those people that are working within the program that we want them to do some pyramid model work, but they don't need access to see child names. So that's what this role is for.
Okay.
And they can
Is
do
there-
BOQs. Mhm.
Has there been like updated documentation on these roles
Yeah.
yet?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. I will probably follow up with an email asking for that.
Perfect. I know it's complicated, especially when you're trying to,
Oh, it's fine.
you have coaches that are wearing multiple hats and they have to switch between, yeah, it can get
Mhm.
tricky. So,
And you guys are busy and doing really great updates all the time too, so no worries.
all right.
Awesome. But thank you so much for this.
You are very welcome. Well, I will go ahead and